Welcome everyone to the first of CitizenGO's live streams that we probably will make a regular event. Thank you to all of those people who have joined us, the CitizenGO members and supporters and others that might not know about CitizenGO but are just interested to hear what Senator Malcolm Roberts has to say. He will be joining us very, very soon. We're going to be talking tonight about the Albanese government's digital prison that it's building for Australians. They're doing a lot that is clamping down on free speech online, imposing censorship, undermining your privacy. And what better person, politician, nay, should I say statesman, could we have picked to speak to about this than Senator Malcolm Roberts? You probably know him as a One Nation senator from Queensland. Senator Roberts has been someone who has been just tireless at fighting against globalism, fighting against the undermining of a whole raft of freedoms in this country, fighting against the undermining of privacy, fighting against the climate madness, fighting for common sense conservatism in this country. And it's great to have him join us here. Now, if you haven't already joined CitizenGO, can I encourage you to do so? Zip over to our website right now, citizengo.org, and all you got to do is click the Join Us button. You can have a look at an array of our petitions that are on that site that talk about these issues, whether it's digital ID, whether it's about the eSafety Commissioner and her sort of imposition of digital dictatorship that we have, or a whole raft of issues. You'll find something that you want to protest about. And I can assure you that either myself or my fellow campaigner for CitizenGO, Brian Marlow, do deliver those petitions. We get them to the decision makers, and they're not parliamentary petitions. They don't pretend to be. What they pretend to be is hard-hitting petitions that show that there is a mass of support, a mass actually of angry people who want change, and that's what CitizenGO is all about. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got almost 200 people. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in Senator Roberts. Senator, it's great to have you with us for this, our first CitizenGO Australia live stream. How are you doing this fine night?
I'm very well, thanks, George. I'm still waiting for the global warming to arrive. It's a bit cold, but let's see if you can do something about that, will you? And I noticed I've got to have this, make this comment, mate. You remind me of Che Guevara, you know, the military top, and I think that's fitting because we are up against the reverse of what Che Guevara was up against. We're up against a communist diktat.
Yeah, well, we probably need revolution against those communists that are in power, and that's what we hope to actually do peacefully. Of course, he's
yes,
had a bit of a revolution here in this country, a revolution for common sense and the values that you and I and many of the people listening actually hold dear. But let's dive straight into it, Senator Roberts, because you're there. I call you one of the sentinels that we've got in the Senate, because you and sadly only a few others are actually there, although you've increased the stock in One Nation at the last election. Congratulations. But there's only a handful of you that are actually fighting back and speaking up against some of the madness that we see that is undermining freedom in this country, undermining privacy in this country, and particularly they're focused at doing this online, which is basically the new public square, the new town square. So can you just give us a broad brush of where you think we are currently at the moment in terms of the Albanese Labor government's approach to free speech? And I know that you might also want to comment on what the Liberals did when when I was actually a member of the Liberal National Coalition government. Don't feel free to miss the Liberal Party on some of the actions they had, because I didn't.
Yeah, I know, and I've got to compliment you for the work you did within, mate. Very, very strong. And thank you for getting up the inquiry into financial services, because we pushed that, as you know, and you let Turnbull know that it was coming. And thank you for extending that message through to Turnbull himself. But you don't have to invite me to talk about the Uni Party. It's not Labour on its own. We're going to no doubt cover 5 or so bills and a couple more coming that I didn't even know about and that you put me in touch with. But the suite, I call it the suite of 5. They're running across both sides of politics in this country. Morrison's Liberal National Party government did a lot of the work on this and actually introduced or flagged these bills. So he didn't introduce all of them to the Parliament, but he did introduce them as topics and as bills forthcoming. And he did the work on it. His party did the work on it. And then Albanese has introduced them into Parliament or taken them further and tried to pass them to the Parliament. And I've got to call out your old mate. I was just joking here. Simon Birmingham, George, because Simon Birmingham, I can't remember the bill. I'm pretty sure it was the under 16 age verification bill, what people call the under 16 internet ban bill. But the Labor Party wanted to guillotine the last day of Parliament last year, guillotine something like 20 bills and just pass them through. You know what they do. And the Liberals have never done it that badly before. I think the Labor Party passed guillotine 225 bills in 3 years. That's 80 a year. That's what's that? That's 4 a week. So anyway, the Labor Party introduced a guillotine, and one of them was a list of about 18 bills that were guillotined. The others had a little bit of debate, and the Greens and the Liberals opposed the guillotine, so we were saved. And then the Labor Party did a deal, gave something to the Greens, and came back with a revised motion. Thank you, Laurie. Came back with a revised motion that included all the bills except the misinformation, disinformation bill, which the Liberals and the Greens had talked about opposing before and opposed it being the guillotine. And they were just about to waive the misinformation, disinformation, the under 16 identity verification bill off the guillotine list. And Simon Birmingham stood up and said, I think we should move an amendment to put it back on. So it's all pretense. That's what you can take from the Liberals. And you know that, George. It's just pretense. They pretended to oppose and talked about how free speech was so important, and when we've got to stop this heinous bill and fancy guillotining at Labor Party, and then they brought it back into the list of bills to be guillotined. So I mean, it's just a charade.
They wanted it, and that is the sad thing. I think, particularly when it comes to the Liberal Party. I mean, we sort of expect now, sadly, the stuff from the Labor Party and from the Greens, but someone likened it to this: is Liberal Party's the sort of the kind of uncle, relative, that you want to do well, and when they're not doing well, it's sort of like, oh, what are they doing, but they're slowly, it is sad to see that they are becoming more and more like the Labor Party in their approach to different things. But anyway, can you just go through that suite of 5 things that you see coming?
Well, I'm talking about the suite of 5 things that have come and gone through, except for one, which One Nation defeated. And I mean that. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, because we should take the credit for igniting the fire, but the people of Australia defeated that. So I think that's very, very important to say right up front. But the 5, let's see if I can remember the 5. Misinformation, disinformation.
And that's the one we defeated?
Yes, that's the one we defeated. The people of Australia defeated that. That was a genuine people's movement. We should talk more about that later on.
Yeah.
The identity verification bill, which is that's an identity verification bill, and that's about the use of biometric data. The digital identity bill, the under 16 internet ban bill, and the work that the Reserve Bank has done on a digital currency. So is that a comment for me, or that's a comment for someone else? So they're 5. Now, the significant thing is that Labor and Liberals have worked together as a tag team on that, just like they have on energy. The person who introduced the national electricity market, who introduced the renewable energy target, who introduced theft of farmers' property rights, led a government. It was a Liberal Party government, and every major climate and energy bill has been passed by the Liberal Party, has been introduced by the Liberals. So they're working on that together. But what I'm getting to, George, is the suite of five have not only been from both sides of politics agreed on it, but they're also from the five descendants of the British Commonwealth: Britain, New Zealand, Canada, United States, and Australia, and some countries in Europe. But what I'm getting to is that this is orchestrated outside our country. What we're seeing here has been brought in to other countries. And thank goodness for Donald Trump, because he is not taking any of this crap.
Indeed, indeed.
And then the idea is to have a social credit system so that they can control everything you do. What you say on social media will attract credit points and access to money. And, you know, that's where they're headed. So they want to control every aspect of our lives.
That is the ultimate. I'm definitely saying that is the end point, and it's not far fetched. Some people would say, "Oh, well, that's sort of a theory." Some people might even pejoratively say that's a conspiracy theory. But the reality is, as we know, it's now 6 months between conspiracy theory and the news these days. But in all seriousness, you've got provinces in Italy which have already got social credit score systems in place. You've had members of parliament, of the government in the UK calling for social credit systems to be put in place.
1,500 journalists jailed in the United Kingdom. 1,500 jailed. Simply speaking against the government's language.
Well, now we've got in Europe this what they call a democracy shield, I think they're calling it, and you know it's the opposite. It's a democracy sword, as in a sword through democracy, because it's all about stifling free speech. And yes, there is the ability to arrest journalists based on basically what the government doesn't like, and if what they're saying is something the government doesn't like, they can go on and arrest them. So, in order to somehow protect democracy, governments are moving to actually undermine the pillars of democracy. This gets into a bit of a metaphysical.
Can I just make the point, George, before you get onto that? Yep. To save democracy, they want to kill democracy.
Yeah.
To save speech, they want to kill free speech. To save the planet, they want to kill the environment. You know what they're doing in energy is destroying large swaths of prime farmland, rural and also natural habitats, creeks, mountains, and kill club koalas. This is actually happening in our country. What they're saying in the name of something, they're going to kill that thing because it's all about control and wealth transfer. That's it, control. And they're age long. There's nothing new about that. There's no conspiracy theory in that, George. It's age old.
Correct. And so someone's just asked in the comment section again if we can have the CitizenGO website again. I'll just say that again. It's citizengo.org, O-R-G. And if you go there, you'll find a host of petitions on various topics that we're talking about here. And someone's asked whether those petitions are live. Yes, they are. And new signatures added to those petitions will go to the decision makers. Most of them primarily we're getting off to the Prime Minister, his office, and also the key ministers involved in these areas. So maybe the Minister for Communications, for instance, or when it comes to the eSafety Commissioner, it might be a different portfolio there that we're targeting. Senator Roberts, let's go to the misinformation bill that you talked about earlier. So yes, it was a great victory, and I'm going to tell you that I know that One Nation did a hell of a lot of work on that.
So did CitizenGO. CitizenGO did a hell of a lot of work.
We did, and I think collectively, actually, I can remember when the first push came for it, and then they dropped it. And we thought that they dropped it altogether, but they brought it back. But when they dropped it, I remember some cheerleading journalist for the misinformation bill actually credited both One Nation and CitizenGO for the petitions that they were running as being what flooded the Department of Communications to actually show that there was a groundswell of support and they needed to go back to the drawing board. So we can both give ourselves a little pat on the back there. But they brought it back, and then it was still defeated.
Yeah. Well, also, that wasn't the first time. We had James Ashby in our party notified us that he heard there was a cash ban bill to be brought into Parliament by Scott Morrison. Remember that?
I remember that, yes.
How could you forget it? Anyway, that was to be brought into Parliament. So he gave us a tip-off and invited us to lead the charge on that. We have some very good staff in my office. Sadly, Albanese's fired them for me. But anyway, that's another story. That's how they control. They knock out the good opposition. So anyway, we went to the Labor Party. It was introduced in the House of Reps. The Labor Party was in opposition. We went to the Labor Party Minister for Finance, Jones, and he said no, he wouldn't oppose it. It went through. So it went through both houses, went through the lower house of Parliament from both sides. In the meantime, we worked with the Greens, we worked with the crossbench senators, and we started working with the branch members of the Liberal Party and the branch members of the Labor Party, and built up such a storm that when it was passed through the House, George, it came to the Senate, was consigned to a committee for inquiry, and it languished there for months. And I went, well, what the hell? I moved a motion to get it off the Senate books, and it won. We won our motion. It was defeated from the Senate. Now they're working on a cashless society in many, many ways, but that's one way. So the people both times flooded the Senate and flooded the House of Reps, and showed that they were a force to be reckoned with. And that's a very potent reminder that the top of this country is not the government. The top of this country is the people. We have got to wake up more people to tell the politicians what they want done.
Yeah, and look, I think that those two examples of what you've just outlined shows that people power does work. And we often get a bit, I mean, even I fall into the sort of black pill of thinking that, is what we're doing making a difference sometimes, because you think that these people never ever listen to us. But when we just act in unison, and it doesn't have to be just the one campaign. In fact, it can, it's often better that it's multiple organic campaigns that are, but all in one direction. So you've got the spears being chucked from multiple players to the same source. We can be like the Zulus, but we ultimately win the battle. That would be good. And I think that those two examples do show that we can affect change. And so thank you for pointing that out. But the misinformation bill, while defeated, the government is still committed fully to this agenda. I mean, they have talked about, Malcolm, this digital duty of care. And I think it's a bill that they're talking about. It's a little bit missed at the moment because we haven't seen the colours of their eyes on it, the detail of what would be in this bill. But what we know is that the government is trying to impose upon, I presume, this big social media companies, perhaps podcast providers, perhaps ISPs, I don't know, Google itself, who knows? They're trying to impose this idea that you've got a duty of care to protect internet users from misinformation.
That's good. So, that means we have free speech, because the best form of debate, best form of protection against misinformation and disinformation is free speech and debate, open debate. That's the best form.
Indeed. And it's interesting. We've got Marty, who's just put a comment up there.
He's spot on.
He is spot on. Can you talk to that for a second? Because I know that this is where it emanates from. The UN have got their own things out there that are advocating for every country to actually go down this path. So we wonder why all of a sudden we're talking about policies that are exactly the same in the UK, in Canada, in Australia, in Europe, in New Zealand, wherever it might be, all around the world, talking about cracking down on misinformation, is because the call has come out from Antonio Guterres there at the United Nations that we've all got to go down and ban everyone from political discussion that they don't like. Can you tell us a bit about how that works, Malcolm? How does the UN actually affect Australian laws?
Well, the UN can't affect Australian laws. We know that, George. The only way our laws can be affected is when our dopey, gutless, ignorant, stupid, weak politicians in Canberra, Liberal and Labor, agree to pass them through the Parliament and provisions. You know, you look at the Paris Agreement. Let's go back, and this is how the UN operates, and our Liberal Labor club operate, the Uni Party. In Copenhagen Conference of Parties, the UN laid a real egg, because Kevin Rudd went over there with his 104 people in his train on train, and including a hair cutter, a barber, and so they had a massive talk fest at the end of the Copenhagen UN Conference of Parties conference back in, what was it, 2010, 11, something like that, and there was one very, very embarrassing thing: they couldn't agree on an agreement. So what was supposed to happen was the negotiators flew in, all the bureaucrats flew in, and then the prime ministers, the presidents, the princes, they would all fly in at the last couple of days, and they'd sign a wonderful declaration and celebrate, and that would go off around the world. Well, they couldn't celebrate, so that was an embarrassment. So what they did in Paris was they brought the presidents and the premiers and the princes and the prime ministers at the start of the Paris conference in 2015. And then they all quickly suddenly left, and the bureaucrats hammered out, well, they couldn't come to an agreement. China said, go to hell, we'll think about it in 2050. India said much the same, go to hell, we'll think about it later sometime. All the third world countries said, nah, not for us, we want what you bastards got, which is hydrocarbon fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, because that's the secret to human progress and productivity and wealth and lifestyle and secure living and longevity. That's the secret. So they had no agreement. So what they did was they conjured up an agreement that to not agree. So everyone just had to say what they wanted to do, and that was the agreement. So everyone had a different take on it. And what did our dopey bastards do in Canberra? They passed the legislation on climate and energy that was really stiff and is now gutting our country. They raised the renewable energy target astronomically. Many other provisions, they weren't from the UN, but they were pretense from the UN. The UN had the overall agenda, the overall goal. Dopey bastards in Canberra sold us down the drain and committed us to economic suicide. And that's what's happening in our country. So the UN sets the agenda, then a few toadies in each country push that agenda, and if they get enough votes, then it goes through Parliament and locks everything in. And that's what's happening in our country.
It's disgraceful that happens, that we've got people that are just wanting to undermine our own sovereignty, and yet they're members of Parliament who have sworn an oath basically to the sovereign of this nation, which means not just the sovereign, but the sovereignty of this nation that they then proceed to undermine. Very sad.
Well, it's really a contract to represent the people, to listen to the people and then speak what the people want and to vote in accordance with the way the people want them to vote. That's what it is. It's a contract, and they've broken that contract. They've breached it. They've sold out the people, not just a country. They've sold out the people, because a country is not just a flag. A country is not just a patch of dirt with a coastline around it. A country is a group of people.
Yeah. And let's just moving on to another attack on freedom, as I see it. The eSafety Commissioner, she's been given a
liberal appointment.
Yeah. I mean, and I got to say that probably one that, again, for the perhaps I should have seen it coming, but one that I probably would have supported under the guise that this was about protecting children from cyberbullying and from predators online.
And that's a good point. That's a very good point, George. I have complimented the eSafety Commissar, even though I've hammered her office and herself and what she's done overall. I have complimented them for the work they've done on preventing child sexual abuse.
But they should stick to their knitting.
Exactly.
Instead, the time that's taken up censoring people for saying, a man can't be a woman online is time that could actually be taken to stop predators from, messaging kids on Facebook Messenger or whatever it might be. So I don't understand the bent, but clearly she's gotten her writing orders from the government that she is to go down this track. She's had a few comeuppances recently. Billboard Chris, Elon Musk. She's lost a couple of cases in the administrative tribunal, or the administrative review tribunal, I should say, or in the courts. She's probably going to be in for a hell of a time come Senate estimates, I would guess.
Well, she is every Senate estimates, George. But that's very important to note that she took herself off to the World Economic Forum, and represented Australia there with a number of staff. And she is apparently claims credit for being the leader, or if not the leader, then one of the leaders. And I'm pretty sure she makes out she's the leader of a global push of 5 countries so far, building to 7 and more, to control the internet and to control children around the world. That's what they're heading. They're not hiding that from anyone. She's also got a vendetta, in my opinion, against Elon Musk and X, because she did come from Twitter, as it was formerly known. So there's a whole lot of, to me, questions need to be asked about her use of taxpayers' resources and taxpayers' funds, as well as her authority, which I think she's exceeded, and the courts have said she's exceeded it.
So what is going to happen there, Mark? I mean, she's persistently, and I'm going to say that there's been multiple cases where the courts have said, no, this decision is wrong. I mean, that recent one from the Administrative Review Tribunal, they've changed the name. It basically, perhaps I might be wrong in the way I'm putting this forward legally, but to me, it seemed that the review tribunal was saying you have made an unlawful decision. I mean, their job is to review administrative decisions to make sure that those administrative decisions have followed the law. And in this case, they looked at it and they said, no, that's not following the law. So therefore, in my mind, did the eSafety Commissioner make an unlawful order? And she's done this multiple times. And then there's also been cases where she actually hasn't made said orders. What she's done is given suggestions that have been puffed up to make it look like it's an order without being an order to social media companies. All of that means that there's a lot of smoke coming from this place, that they have overstepped their boundaries, that they have actually worked outside the law. And what they're trying to do in working outside the law is censoring political discussion of Australians. When will be the comeuppance? When will be, when I know I'm probably asking the wrong person. It should be the communications minister. But when do you think that enough's going to be enough?
Well, it's hard to say with the communist government in power right now, the communist coalition, the Labor Party and the Greens, because they're all about control. So long as she does what they tell her to do or comply with the great overall direction, they will keep her there until the heat gets too strong. And the heat will come from Senate estimates, as we've shown in the past. But she has, I agree with you, there was a very good summary, George. There's not a word I would change in your summary of the eSafety Commissar's behaviour. She has tried to imply things that are not in the law, as I understand it, and she's also made bad decisions, and I would say maybe vindictive or reckless decisions. Possibly we could even say that, and she's guilty of that, and her office is guilty of that. So, but there's the answer to your question. Labor will tolerate will turn its eyes away from any breach until it gets too hot, and it's our job to make it too hot, because she has got to go. She's exceeded her authority. She's a globalist.
Yeah. So it's One Nation's position to either end the office or just to end her reign in the office. Which one would it be?
Continue the office, but get it back to its original task of protecting children. Full stop. No censorship, no vindictiveness, no getting after X and Elon Musk. Indeed. Just concentrate on protecting children. And they have done a good job on that.
Yeah. I would completely concur with you that's what should be happening with that office. It's not. and it's very sad because actually I read something recently. There's been a huge spike in the number of complaints about bullying of children that have gone through to that office, and the funny thing is that I think it's been used as this is why you need us. I think it's actually, I think it's an indictment on the office that there has been a huge spike because it means that they're not focusing on that core issue that they should be focused on. They're focused instead on undermining free speech. So
and doing so globally, George, because she was very proud in her first entry into the Senate estimates a few years ago. She was very proud of that, setting up that network, initiating that network. And then she suddenly realized Alex Senetic and myself were not on her side. And then her tone changed. She's used to, well, we don't need to go into personalities, but she's used to getting her way, I'd say.
Well, she's someone who I got to say that she's been on my radar ever since I was actually in office, and it was at the tail end of it when she went to the WF, as per what you said before, and said to him that we needed to recalibrate free speech. And as soon as you hear those words, recalibrate free speech, what are you talking about? What are you talking about recalibrating free speach? I mean, you can't recalibrate free speech. It's either free speech or it's not. I mean, I was going to say before, to get into the bit of philosophical or metaphysical here, but I mean, I just can't fathom why democratic governments and democratic institutions and even journalists, who should be the ultimate defenders of free speech, why you have all of these different democratic institutions that suddenly become cheerleaders for censorship. Do they not think that at some point the pendulum might swing, and the same impositions that they might want to put on people like you and me, if we're talking about climate change or another issue that they don't like us talking about, might be put on them? I just don't fathom it.
Well, George, let me ask you a question.
If you do.
There's a simple answer to your question. Would you do it to them? Would you do it? Of course you wouldn't, and neither would I, because the moment we do it, two things: we destroy free speech if we try to control someone, and secondly, you and I are honest and we're not hypocrites. So you would tear me apart on air if some mad reason I got into government and I started to use these powers against the Labor Party. You would rip me a new one many, many times over, and you would make sure of that, because it doesn't matter where it comes from. It's a violation of the people's right to free speech, and that's one of the fundamental things with the democracy. If you haven't got free speech, you haven't got democracy.
Full disclosure, I mean, people have attacked me for saying that I'm against the right to protest because I was hypercritical of extreme environmentalists that protest. But what I was critical of is the fact that they did that on private property. They would actually go and invade a workplace and put themselves and other people in harm's way. I mean, that's not speech, Malcolm. That's action. And that crosses into a very different line. It's like burning a flag. I mean, my personal view on that is burning a flag is not speaking. That is not free speech. That is something else. And if it's speech, it's something that could be potentially recorded in Hansard. You can't record in Hansard burning a flag, and you can't record in Hansard tying yourself to a conveyor belt. So I think there's different things that are going on with that. But free speech has got to be sacrosanct in any democracy. Otherwise, I think it's.
Well, I think George, there are several.
When you don't have it.
There are several freedoms that have to be sacrosanct in a democracy, and unfortunately, the Liberal national parties are going away from these, abandoning them. Free speech is one thing, but if you're not free to live, you're never going to speak anyway. So we have got governments have three basic rules, or roles, I should say: protect life, protect property, and protect freedom. In that order, probably. Certainly, protect life is the first one. Look what they're doing now. They're paying women to have an abortion, and they get the same treatment as if they were miscarried. Then they get maternity leave, and they get up to $22,000 to have an abortion. I mean, that's taxpayer money, and they're killing killing babies that are otherwise healthy, completely healthy. And then they're stealing property rights. John Howard's government stole farmers' property rights to comply with the UN's Kyoto Protocol. There's nothing more sacrosanct apart from life itself than property rights. That's the fundamental basis for responsibility in a society, fundamental basis for law and order. It's a fundamental basis for innovation and entrepreneurship and initiative. If you can't keep what you earn, what's the point of earning anything? And the third one is freedom of speech. And there's so many other freedoms as well that are trapped in that. We saw breaches of freedom of movement, freedom of exchange, freedom of trade, freedom of interchange from people, and freedom of association during the COVID mismanagement, during the COVID fraud, the COVID response. That was all that so many freedoms were broken, and that came from the Liberal side, working from the federal Liberal government with the Labor, mostly Labor state governments. And so it's both sides did that, and they should reveal their true colours there. And we don't need to look any further. And you did a phenomenal job of calling that out. One of very, very few in the House of Reps calling it out. So they've shown their colours, mate.
Yeah, they have indeed. Although I think that there still are some people within the coalition, particularly in the Senate, Senator Antic and Senator Canavan.
Yeah,
and
Matt.
There's a few others that probably aren't as vocal, sadly, that don't want to see these measures put in place. So here's hoping that they do speak out more and that it changes. But under the current leadership, I don't see that coming anytime soon.
Well, what happened, George, when Pauline moved a motion? I think the first full day of sitting, it might have been the first Monday of the second week. She moved a motion to saying something negative about net zero, ending net zero, something like that. It's a very simple motion. Yeah. And we had Alex Antic with us voting in favour of it. We had Matt Canavan voted in favour of it. We had the Greens in opposition and the Labor Party in opposition. And then I was so embarrassing for the Liberal Party. We had Ralph Babette with us. We had the 4 One Nation senators all with it. Then as soon as the vote was over, of course we lost because we're just Antic, Canavan, my 4 One Nation and Babette and maybe a couple of others. I think there were a couple of other Liberals. As soon as it was declared, in came the Liberals. They were too embarrassed to be present in the. They couldn't vote against it because it was against their party policy, and they couldn't vote for it because of their conscience. So they just went outside and abandoned them.
Yeah. I mean, we can need Liberals. That, as I said, it's the uncle that you want to do good, but when you see that, you're just like, oh, Uncle Joe, lay off the drink. Just. Get yourself on track, mate. I don't know whether they will. That's up to them, but we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about undermining free speech. One of the other things that's on my list to talk about, Malcolm, is the age verification laws. This is a vexed issue. I'd probably say that even some CitizenGO members may think that age verification is a good thing because, again, it's done under the pretext of that we've got to stop kids from accessing social media because social media can be harmful for children. And I got to say that I'm probably partially on board with that. I think that social media is not the place for kids, but I also believe that the worst parent in the world would be the Australian government. The people who should be policing what their kids are doing is mum and dad, and not having Anthony Albanese in there as the third parent telling the kids that they can't go on Facebook or they can't go on YouTube or whatever it might be. Nonetheless, we've got this coming at us now. It's not just about children. The reality is it's a way to undermine anonymity online, to work out who everyone is in order to ensure that, well, maybe it's not in order to do it, but the side effect will be that if you post something online on an anonymous account and they want to come after you, they will find out who you are, because there has to be some form of age verification, which in most cases would mean digital ID or biometric scanning And that, to me, has got to be more alarming and more concerning than any other factor in this. What has happened here, Senator Roberts, and what is going to happen with this age verification stuff?
Well, I believe, and I've said this in the Senate and many times since and outside the Senate, this is a way of getting everyone onto digital ID, forcing people to get onto digital ID, which we're told is voluntary. Oh, no, Senator Roberts, it's all entirely voluntary. Well, that's rubbish, because to get some services in Queensland, the state government requires a digital ID. And we've pointed that out and got nothing from the federal Labor government. So this is a way of forcing, if you want, well, there's so many things we can talk about here. First of all, this is undermining parents yet again. State and federal governments have been undermining parents for decades now, and they're destroying the family. And that's part of the process. That's willful, I believe. It's certainly highly negligent if they don't know they're doing it. But that's just undermine parents, make the government the control of the parents. And what we've got is indoctrination going on in the education departments. And indoctrination right across the country. We've got a UN-sourced national curriculum, which John Howard introduced. And so that is indoctrinating children. We've got them, there's so many woke agendas, changing gender, changing sexuality, that they're just preying on children, grooming children. And then you've got I think the main objective of this, and that is that if the parent these days can buy software that locks children out of various sites, or, as I understand it, allows them only to visit certain sites that the parents authorize. That's all you need. And the platforms, the social media platforms and the internet search platforms are working with parents and have got some good tools on that. No, the government wants to go further. Why does it want to go further? Because it'll force you to identify yourself in front of your camera on the computer, and if you're over 16, and so you'll have to put all your details on. And if you're over 16, you won't be allowed to be on sites that are not kiddie safe. So what that means is you have to divulge your digital identity to get on to the internet to search beyond children approved sites. So that means, and it's not a matter of getting your child to sit in front of the camera and then push the child aside and get on yourself to avoid the digital ID, because you'll be locked out. So what they're forcing people to do is to get on with digital ID. That's entirely what they want to do. And once they've got that, they can control what you say, what you do. We were talking about the suite of 5 bills at the start. Here we are back already at that same sad place.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, Senator Roberts, what's happened is that these laws have come into place, and they come into place very quickly.
Yep.
And kids, well, not kids, adults actually are now finding on free speech platforms such as X the inability to read certain tweets that are just political. There's nothing unsafe about them.
Yep.
And there's a marker saying that this tweet has been, or this post has been restricted for, so that you can age verify before seeing it. So it's actually, and I didn't think that element would come into it, but it's actually become a tool for censorship now in that regard. Because if you don't want to, show your age online or show ID, then you're going to be restricted from seeing certain things as well.
But it's not just a matter of not being. You don't want to be forced to divulge your age. That's not a problem. It's all the other details that come with your digital ID. That's the real issue. And then the ability to control and turn things on and off, your access to food, your access to bank, your access to finance, your access to travel, your access to movement. They have got cities in the UK that are 15-minute cities. That's here. Yep. And they've got the similar kinds of things set up with councils in this country, but they haven't activated it yet. So let me just show you something you may not know about. You may. As you know, the Prime Minister makes a determination on the number of parliamentary advisors, the number of Yeah, that's Sue Barber's got a really good comment there.
Yeah.
George, we get 5 electorate offices each. That's to deal with constituents, and Queensland's got 5.6 million constituents. Okay, so we've got a fair share. We've got a huge state. It's second only to Western Australia in area. It's got way more people than Western Australia. It's got more diversity in its regional climates and topographies than Western Australia. It's got more diversity in its industries and communities than Western Australia. Tasmania's got about 575,000, 1/10 of the people we've got, just over 1/10 of the people we've got. Tasmanian senators get 5 electorate offices, so do we. All the senators get 5 electorate offices. Okay, that's fine. They should be equal because they're state representing the state, so they each need to be equal. We know about that in the Constitution. We had 2 parliamentary advisors, personal advisors, which is separate from the electorate office. And that's to help us get through the enormous amount of legislation. Each of the crossbench senators had 2. Albanese whacked them down from 3 to 2. Now we have 4 senators. We have got 1 per senator. Lydia Thorpe has got 2. Tammy Tyrrell's got 2. David Pocock's got 2. Jackie Lambie's got 3. Now, is it any secret? I don't think it's a secret that these people vote largely with the Labor Party.
Mm-hmm.
Fatima Payman, who disgraced the Labor Party, has got none. So she's been discriminated against. And we have gone from 2 to 1 each.
You got to wonder whether that would be contestable. I mean,
we're going to contest it, mate.
Is unfair. And, you know, I guess in a way, this is also inhibition on free speech because you guys are parliamentarians. You're the ones that need to have your research done, you know, have all the I's dotted and T's crossed to make sure that what you're saying is right. And the government's deliberately withholding resources from you because of what you believe, you know, when they're giving it to other people. So that inhibits you, Senator Roberts, as my senator, and I'm actually quite upset about that fact because as my senator, you should have equal access to research staff as Jackie Lambie or David Pocock or any of them, and not just be picking and choosing.
Well, it gets worse, George.
They're favoured.
It gets worse.
How?
Some of the parliamentarians, some of the senators, I think only 2 of them, have had letters from the Prime Minister flagging a decrease in staff. Ruffabet, for example, from 2 to 1. I am the only senator to have a letter sent to my 2 staff, bypassing me as their employer, completely bypassing me. I'm their legal employer, and saying that their jobs will end on a certain date. He has fired my staff. So We'll be appealing that. This is full of inconsistencies. They've really made a mess of things. There are several things we're going to go after them over. But this is the level to which we have sunk in this country when it comes to political debate and political operation.
Alice.
They've jailed Pauline. They've called her names. They've made it very difficult for her. They've put up with, they've allowed people to tell lies about her. They've infiltrated her party, when it was young, from both the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, infiltrated the party to destroy it. Now they're coming after the senators' staff. And so we have got this fight in our hands. And what are we doing when we're providing? And this is the man who claims to be head of the Labor Party and protecting workers. He's causing untold amounts of stress. And that's what's going on in this country. This is nobbling the opposition.
Very sad. So one of the things that has come up in the comments has been a comment that I can't pull up, and I'm sorry to say, folks, first live stream that we've done, there have been a few technical issues. What we'd hoped was that Brian Marlowe, who's out in another room, was going to be able to put the comments up on the screen and share the links with you, but unfortunately he can't access that part of it, and only I can because we've done it the wrong way. Anyway, next time we do a live stream, we'll have all of those technical bugs sorted out so that you know, your comments are going on screen earlier, and and you're getting the links earlier as we're speaking about the issues. Nonetheless, I've posted 3 of the links to petitions, particularly around the United Nations, which we've talked about. We've talked about the age verification system, and I think the other one that I put up was in regards to the eSafety Commissioner. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to get behind those petitions. But Senator Roberts, you're at the cutting edge. You know what gets under the skin of politicians. I do too.
Truth.
Having been
Truth.
one myself.
Gets under their skin.
So the people watching want to know, they're angry and upset at the government undermining free speech, at the Liberal Party, also when they were in office, doing the same thing, not taking strong enough stances against some of these measures. What can the average person in the street do, Senator Roberts, to try and wind back some of this stuff, to try and get either the government or the opposition to see sense?
First of all, I encourage people to realize that they need to be very, very proud of being a human. And I say that because let me tell you a little story. Professor Bob Carter and I used to go around the country separately speaking against the climate fraud. This is back around 2010, 11, 12, at our own cost as volunteers. And I bumped into Bob every now and then. And one day we were just shooting the breeze between speeches in a little break, and he said, Malcolm, this climate scam must be the biggest scam ever. And I said, it's not even close, Bob. And he said, what do you mean? I said, look at the money scam, the way they print money for nothing, and nothing at risk at all, no asset at risk. And he said, yeah, you got a point. And I said, but it's not the biggest scam. There's a scam that's even bigger and more destructive than the money scam. That's the anti-human scam. Fundamentally, at the whole of all of this, George, there's a belief in the United Nations and some of the people who push the United Nations that humans are greedy, rapacious, uncaring, unkind, irresponsible. We just don't give a damn. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I want to remind people of a very because what they're doing now is they're indoctrinating little kids from literally from infancy through to university graduation about the fact that they think that humans are greedy, rapacious, uncaring, unkind. So they're getting belted in their curriculum, which comes from the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, that humans are bad. And that is the wrong thing to tell children. So what we've got to do is be proud of our species. None of us are perfect. None of us is perfect. But we're at our heart, most humans are wonderful people. So that's the first thing. Be very, very proud. Look for the positive in people. And I mean that sincerely. The second thing is to stand up and realize that in Australia, we have the only country in the world in which the people voted for a constitution before the constitution came into force. We're the only country in the world. The other countries had a constitutions imposed or gifted. No vote. And at the top of our country, at the top of our governance structure is the people. We're actually a republic already, because the top of our constitution is top of our governance structure is the constitution. Sure, we're a monarchy, but we're not a true monarchy because the monarch doesn't rule supreme. The monarch serves the country, serves the constitution, has reserved powers only. So the monarch doesn't rule the country, the monarch serves the country, and Queen Elizabeth did a marvelous job at that. But what it means is that we are in essence a republic right now. We're run as under rule of law. The supreme document in our constitution, our governance, is the Constitution. Everything serves the Constitution. And who's the top of the tree in this country? It's the people. What we've happened in this country, thanks to the media, which has been pushing a narrative over many decades, and thanks to the UN and the World Economic Forum, is the belief that the people serve the government, when it's not true. The government serve the people. So there's fundamental things. People are very, very good. People are at the top of the tree. People need to preserve our democracy. The other thing about a democracy, George, as you well know, for a democracy to work, it requires people to be active. A passive democracy is no longer a democracy. A passive democracy where people slide into apathy and then slide into tyranny doesn't work. We've got to be active. So it's not just a matter of rocking up every 3 or 4 years, whether state or federal or state, and having a vote. It's about being informed of the party's policies, the candidates' characters, the candidates' values. That's very, very important. Be an informed voter. then vote. But more importantly, or as importantly, I should say, it's being alive during the 3 years or the 4 years term and holding parliamentarians accountable, visiting their offices, telephoning them, writing physical letters, not emails, physical letters, holding them accountable, talking to your workmates, talking to your sporting mates, your club mates, your church, your family, and educating people in what's happening, because this country is getting done over.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we've got more resources per person than any other country in the world. The value of our resources. We've got a fantastic climate that we can grow anything almost at various times of the year. We can grow anything, and some places we can grow something all through the year. We've got a wonderful climate. We've got access to water. It's poorly mismanaged because of government. But the one thing we lack is decent leadership, because we have got an enormous potential. The world's largest market to our north in Asia. We've got enormous potential, enormous opportunity, but it's being squandered. And that's because the people are serving the government and allowing the government to get away with it. We've got to get more people awake. So please, if you like some of the things we've been talking about and you like CitizenGO, I would suggest the things you can do are to spread the word about what George and Brian Marlow are trying to do, and support CitizenGO, because that's what you're about, isn't it, George?
Well, that's in the name, CitizenGO. So it's about making sure that the citizenry of this nation is active, that is alert. That's what we try to do, make them alert about the different things that are going on, and then ways to activate people. And, you know, we're still a little bit fledgling at the moment. Having said that, we're starting to get runs on the board. The biggest run we've had on the board, in conjunction with a whole heap of other groups, is getting rid of the misinformation bill. But there are so many fights that are on the horizon. And look, I promised you, Senator, that I would have you out of here within an hour. It is an hour. Can I just thank you very much? I will let you go, but I want to thank you for not only joining us on this live stream, our inaugural one, but also for the work that you are doing, that you have done, that you will continue to do on behalf of the Australian people, defending freedom, free speech, and our privacy and the sovereignty of this nation. It really is to be commended and appreciated. So thank you very much for that, Senator Roberts.
Thank you. And I just thank you so much, George. I just want to express my appreciation to Pauline Hanson as well, because our party is the first to move a motion. It was defeated by the Greens and the Labor Party in the last Parliament, but we were the first to move a motion for an inquiry to set up the terms of reference, if you like, or the guide to setting up a constitutional referendum to enshrine freedom of speech in the Constitution. So we're the first. And one final point: 40 years ago, the percentage of people who voted for the Liberal Labor duopoly were about 95%. It's now down to about 65% and falling, and it's been a linear fall. So we keep going like this, and we'll eventually get more independents, more small parties into government, and into Parliament, and then into government, and that's so healthy for democracy, because it'll be more vibrant. So,
yeah. Well, here's hoping that we do get more that are distinctly pro-freedom, rather than some of the others that we see cropping up here and there. Thank you very much again, Senator Roberts. To the others out there listening still, I just want to alert you, if you are in the Sydney area, or you might be in the Sydney area tomorrow, and I'm just going to have to pull up the information. We have got a small protest, not a huge one, more of a demonstration, a get together, I should say, that we're going to be holding outside the New South Wales Parliament. It's not going to be hundreds of people. It'll be just a small group of concerned people about the New South Wales Teachers Federation's push to erase the use of the words boys and girls in classrooms throughout New South Wales. If you wish to join Brian and I, we're looking at 12 noon tomorrow. That's tomorrow, Friday, the 15th of August. Outside New South Wales Parliament House in Macquarie Street. So if you happen to be in Sydney, or you want to get to Sydney, you're hot to trot on that issue of the New South Wales Teachers Federation's push to erase the use of the terms boys and girls in the classrooms, you've got to say that's an ideological thing. that's completely got to do with the whole push to erase the gender identity of children, which is just crazy and insane. It has no place in our classrooms. I would encourage you to attend tomorrow for what will be just a small get together, a demonstration, if you will, rather than a protest. So thank you very much for joining us for this live stream. You've been a fantastic audience. We've had hundreds of people join us across 3 platforms, Facebook, X, and also YouTube. We will get better at the tech at our next one, which will be next month. And I look forward to speaking to you all soon. We'll let you know who the next guest is going to be. It's been great to have Senator Roberts with us today. Thanks again. Good night and God bless.